We listen to Jesus in today's gospel reading. He doesn't make it light. He doesn't make it easy sometimes. Listen to what he said. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first. Then he said to them, nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There'll be great earthquakes. Wow, that's scary. In various places there'll be famines and plagues, and there will be dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. Oh, that sounds scary. But is Jesus speaking the truth? Aren't we seeing it now? Or will we rather not talk about it? I want to talk about it. There'll be great earthquakes, and we experience that all the time. God gives us this wonderful body that we get at birth, and after a while, it starts falling apart. No matter what you do. I've had a great experience this week where I find my body falling apart, and it almost feels now that I don't have knees anymore because I decided to take an advice from a 19-year-old, almost 20-year-old guy about how to keep fit. I made a mistake. And he talked me into going to a gym. Can you imagine that? I had 3 visits, and the last visit, I could not even get into my car. And I said, so how am I going to get home? This is warm and it's -5 outside, right? And even if I call someone to come drive me, I need to still get into the vehicle, right? And then I text him and he says, it's fun, Father. Just keep at it, it's going to get better. I said, God bless you. My body is falling apart right now. Not only my voice. How many times have we gotten that invite from a couple that we know? We're getting married after engagement, and they invite you to the wedding. And you go all dressed up to this wedding, and they stand before the priests, and they read their vows to each other, and there's so much love. And years after, you hear the bad news that the marriage has broken down. Marriages break down. Our children get hooked up on drugs, and lives are shattered. Babies are born with defects. What did they do wrong? They're just coming into the world already with defects. Their body's already broken even at birth. And wait till you hear this. This is the saddest of them all. Even priests molest children. And it's if that's not enough, your friends take advantage of you and they disappoint you. They betray your trust. And you do the same too. But why is all of this happening? Why is it that there is no one single thing that God has given to us that we don't break? Pretty much. He gives the priest a church, we break it. He gives us the sacrament of marriage, we break it. He gives us children as parents, we destroy their lives. Is there one thing that is left unbroken in today's world? And the question is, why can't we keep something without breaking it? What's wrong with us? And you notice I said us, right? I didn't say what's wrong with you, because I break everything too. I break everything in my life. The story of man. So why is it this way? Because it's very easy to look at it from one angle. Why do bad people do bad stuff? And I said, it's you versus them, right? You do bad stuff, so you're part of the bad people. We're all bad guys at one point at one time or the other. But why so? Why are we drawn to breaking things? Why? And the answer is very simple. We break things because we live in a broken world. We break things because sin has stained every part of our lives. Everywhere you turn, there's a stain of sin. Everywhere you turn. And so you hand a couple a beautiful sacrament of matrimony, it's stained with sin and it's broken. You hand a priest a beautiful sacrament of the holy orders, it's stained with sin, it's broken. Because every aspect of our lives is stained with sin. And that's the reality. Am I making excuses? No, I'm not. I'm just trying to build an argument here, so stay with me. So if everything in life is broken, why should Christians expect that a Christian life should be easy? Does it even make sense? Why is it that when we face the brokenness of life, then we turn to God and say, oh, you just don't care? When we ourselves also break life? Why do we think Christianity should be a lot easier in a broken world? Why should I think that the priesthood should be easier? Right? That running a parish should be easy. When I'm broken myself, dealing with broken people? That's a high expectation that is never going to be met. Yes, you can say Jesus promised you, he said, my yoke will be easy, right? People always go there, but Jesus said his yoke will be easy. But the answer is, it's still yoke. And yoke, it's difficult. Even if it's easy, it's difficult. It's still yoke. But if Christianity doesn't make any difference, why should I then choose Christianity? If it's just going to be the same, the answer is very simple. I choose to follow Jesus in a broken world because only Jesus can fix a broken world. Christianity is still the best life, true life ever. And how do I mean? Because every other option that you have out there, if you call it option, or whether you want to call it religion, or whether you want to call it a habit, whatever you call it, or hobby, whatever you want to call it, all they do is they make promises. They never fulfill it. You watch an advert on TV, it's all about promises. Well, you take this, your body is never going to fall apart anymore. And then you take that supplement, and your body is still falling apart. Oh yeah, you need to take more. And you take more. Oh no, you just need to take more. That is what all other options outside, that's what they offer us. It's promises and they keep moving the goalposts. There's only one person who makes a promise and he fulfills it. And his name is Jesus. We can't expect to have what I refer to as lazy boy Christianity. I have a favorite couch in my basement. That's where I sit. Is a recliner, as you'll expect. And there's a cup holder just close by. And I put my hot beverage, coffee. I sit down there, turn on my TV, watching my favorite Netflix movie, and life is good. But to be honest, sometimes it's not coffee that's in a cup. Sometimes it's red wine. That's okay too, right? And life is good. Enjoying the movie, having my glass of wine, and suddenly, life is good is interrupted. I get a text from a parishioner, and it says, my mom is dying, or someone in the home calls, someone is dying, Father, come give the last rites. And I wake up to the reality that life is not about sitting on a lazy boy chair. It's much more than that. One of the favorite old songs that never gets old, sung all the time, especially at funerals, is the Amazing Grace. You know that song? Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. Don't mind my voice. I like to read one or two lines from that song because it captures what I'm saying. Listen to what it says. It says, through many dangers, through many toils and snares, I have already gone through them. And it says the next line, how I went through those many dangers, toils, it says, it is grace that brought me thus far. And what's the next line? And grace will lead me home. But grace will lead me home only after I've gone through the many toils and snares. We live in a darkened world where the devil reigns supreme. But Jesus can see us through it. And the reality, as you know, is there are no shortcuts to these things. I like what football coaches, and yeah, we have a game tonight. We better win. Thank God it's on a Sunday. Because when I saw the schedule Sunday, I said, great, it's not a Saturday, or else then half of the church is not here. If Saskatchewan Rough Riders lose, or if they come here, they're angry. So thank God it's a Sunday. So if they do lose, you will have forgotten by next Sunday anyway. So, but coaches often say, I'm sure you've heard that, no pain, no gain, right? No pain, no gain. If you're an adult, you know what I'm talking about. Even kids know that right now, these days. But in the brokenness of life, when we experience the brokenness of life, how can we go through it as faithful Christians? The goal is to change our perspective of it. Because when we have a better perspective of a problem, then we respond in a different way. If I'm talking to someone and we're looking at the wall and I say it's gray and they say it's black, and I insist it's gray, that's what I see, my reaction to gray is going to be different from their reaction to a black wall. The perspective is important. So how can we have a better perspective, knowing that we're going to experience brokenness? And some of you are right there right now, even as I talk. So how can we have a better perspective so that we can better respond to the brokenness of life? The first thing we need to do is to remember that bad things happen because we live in a broken world. That's a reality. I don't know how we expect good things to happen from broken people. Aren't we telling ourselves lies? And I hear that all the time. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe that is happening. I say, and yet, yes, you can also believe that you're behaving a certain way, right? Oh yeah, you're right, Father. Yeah. You're broken, and you do broken things, and you're saying you don't believe another person does broken things? Come on, get real with your expectations. Bad things happen in our world because we live in a broken world. But we got to remember too that we have no control over many things that happen to us. I know we're control freaks. I am. But life teaches me all the time that there are certain things you are never going to be able to control. Right? And you learn it the hard way. But that's not just it. The good thing is, even though some things happen to me, maybe it's my health, maybe it's my relationship, maybe it's my job, comes suddenly upon me, and I didn't expect it, and I have no control over it. There's something I have control over. And what is it? My response. That I have control over. And lastly, to remember that the way I respond to the brokenness of life mirrors my relationship with Jesus. So I, as a priest, can look at you when you're going through struggles of life, and I know exactly where your relationship is with Jesus. You should be able to look at me as a priest, and if I'm going through the struggles of life, you should be able to tell whether this priest is close to Jesus or not. The way we handle the trials of life gives a clearer picture of how close we are with Jesus. And so finally, let's talk about how to respond as people of faith. Because bad things will happen. Right? There's no control over that. Bad things will happen. And some of you listening to me right now, that's where you are at. And some of you just had it a while ago, and you're just trying to get over it. And some, it's going to happen next week or next month. Sorry, but it's going to happen. I'm not there right now, but it's going to happen to me. It's happened to me in the past. It's the reality of life. We just said why, because we live in a broken people do broken things, right? So how can we respond in a way that Jesus wants us to respond to the brokenness of life. Let me start by saying how not to respond. Let's walk backwards. How should a Christian or a Catholic not respond to the brokenness of life? I once heard this popular TV host, American TV host, Jim Warren, is host, as you know, a host of Primetime America. And he has this to say. He says, when hard times come, this is interesting. Wait to hear the next line. He says, be a student, not a victim. Wow. He's not even a priest. Yeah. He says, when hard times come, that's the brokenness of life, choose to be a student. Choose not to be a victim. And that's so hard because we live in a culture that glorifies the status of being a victim. Now, what's the difference? A victim, when hard times come, a victim says, why is this happening to me? A student says, what's God trying to teach me in this? Look at the difference. A victim, oh, poor me. Why is this happening to me? Oh, it's always me. Why always me? And a student right away says, I don't like what's happening, but is God trying to teach me something here? Is he seeking my attention? A victim says, you hear that all the time, life is not fair. Something happens to them, life is not fair. Life is not fair. And the student says, yes, life is not fair sometimes, but the truth is, this could have happened to anyone else. Now let's talk about how to respond. We've looked at how not to respond. Don't be a victim, be a student, right? So how? How should we respond that reflects our relationship with Jesus? James, in his letter, I think it's chapter 4, not the James over there, thank God, not that one. He's even waving like, yeah. Not you, James, not you. It's certainly not you, yeah. Not yet. When you make it to heaven, then we call you saint, right? Not right now. Don't be in a hurry, right? St. James in his letter tells us, he says, listen, he says, count it all joy, brothers and sisters, when you face trials and tribulations. I'll repeat. Count it all joy, brothers and sisters, when you face trials and tribulations. Wait a minute. What's James saying here? So I face the brokenness of life. I'm ill-treated. And James says, count it all joy. That's not a natural reaction. Someone is not telling the truth here. But yeah, it's not a natural reaction. But James says your reaction should be supernatural, not natural. A natural reaction is to feel like a victim. But a supernatural reaction, through the grace of the Holy Spirit, is to feel like a student. What's God saying to me? So how can we count it as joy when we face the brokenness of life? The only way you are able to count your trials and your tribulations as joy is when you realize, and I'm going to stress this, that nothing can happen to you without the knowledge of God. Did you hear it in today's gospel reading? It says the hair on your head is counted. I don't even know that. Gerard, yeah. Do you count the hair before you cut it? I'm sure you don't. You have no idea. Can you give me an idea of how much hair we have on our head? 100,000. Oh, wow. And God knows that. 100,000. Thanks, Gerard. And God says he knows all of that by how many people that live in the world. That's how detailed he is. Why is he? Because he's interested in you. He knows everything about you. So when we realize that nothing, good or bad, can happen to us without God's knowledge, it changes our perspective of the problem, right? Because what makes it harder going through trials is when you know you're alone and God doesn't care. And who tells you that is the bad guy, the devil. That's his goal. Once trial comes, he gets in there and turns you into a victim. God doesn't care. But Scripture tells us that it's not possible for anything to happen to us without God's awareness. How? Because God is the air that we breathe. That's how the best way to explain it. And so if you think you can live without air, then you can survive without God. But you know that's not possible. So when you realize that nothing can happen to you without God's knowledge, then it makes you to start asking the question, well, if God is aware of what I'm going through, then it must be for some good, even though it doesn't feel that way right now. But remember, no pain, no growth. And so, lastly, this is very important. When sorrow visits your home, and you know what I'm talking about. You've gotten that bad news before. When sorrow visits your home, how can you carry on with life? And this is hard. We've all been there before. This is hard. Just think of those times when sorrow came, and it comes unannounced. You're having an easy ride, and boom, in a second, it all goes. How can we carry on? And I'll tell you the first step, we need to kick in and look for what? Look for the promises God has made to you. And I can tell you one or two of his promises to you. He says, I will not leave you alone. And Jesus puts it even clearer just before he died. He said, I will be with you until the end of time. That's until your last breath, I will be with you. So when sorrow visits your home, the first thing is to kick in and remind yourself of what God has promised. Because at that time, it doesn't feel like God is going to be with you or is with you. But if you look back 10 years after, you know God was there. Then the next thing to do is to be thankful for what you need to be thankful for. Because no matter how much sorrow visits your home, there are still things in your home that, good things that God has done that you can be grateful for. Because it changes your perspective. God is still good when you look at other things. It's easy to focus on the sorrow, like nothing good happens else. And then thirdly, you need to resist bitterness. And if the devil wants to work on you, he uses bitterness. The bitterness leads to despair. And where there is despair, there is no hope. So kick in, look for God's promises for your life. Be thankful for what you need to be thankful for. Resist bitterness and despair. And fourthly, I failed at this when sorrow visited me 25 years ago, and I don't want you to fail at it. Fourthly, please choose God. Because when sorrow visits, the devil shows his face and says, I'm your ally here, I'm your friend. You can't trust God. But you need to push him aside and say, I've got only one friend, and it's Jesus. And Jesus is just waiting for you to choose him. And it's so hard to choose Jesus at those times, right? But please, commit to choosing God, and finally, decide to move forward. I once read this book a while ago, and the title of the book is The Law of Spiritual Progress. And then it says the first law of spiritual progress is when you are faced with trials and the brokenness and the reality of life, the first thing you need to do is to remember that you can't go back. Secondly, you can't remain where you are. Thirdly, there's only one option, and that is to move forward. I like to repeat. When you're in that dark place, the option is you can't go back. It's not an option. You can't remain in the dark place. The only option open to you is to move forward. I'd like to introduce you to our reflection for this weekend, for this week. For those of you who have signed up to join the small groups, this is what we'll be talking about this week. These are the questions for this week in your group sharing. And you get the questions again when you go there. I just want to introduce you to it. The first question is, when you look back on your past struggles, where do you now see God's presence that you didn't recognize at the time? 2, how do you discern the difference between God allowing pain for growth and pain that comes from human brokenness and injustice? They are not the same. 3, how might gratitude or reframing hardship, you go to counseling, that's what a counselor does. He reframes the problem the way you look at it. Reframing hardship as formation, that's just what I talked about. Change the way you endure suffering. Is God teaching me something through this suffering? That's formation. And lastly, in what ways can struggle deepen virtues like patience, empathy, or resilience? Next week, come back here. We're talking about how to hear God when everything has broken. That's the hardest time to hear God. And we're going to walk 2 weeks, we're going to talk about that. How to hear God. What is God's accent? How does he speak? Because when everything is broken, the brokenness is so loud that it's so hard to hear God. That's what we're talking about next week. So come back, and I look forward to seeing you. Shall we just say this prayer on the overhead together as we close? Let's say this prayer together. Loving God, in our struggles, we seek your presence. In our pain, we long for your healing. And in our growth, we give you thanks. Teach us to trust that you are near, even when the path feels heavy. Strengthen our hearts to see beyond the trial and to discover the grace hidden within. Together as your people, we lift our burdens and our hopes to you, confident that your love transforms our wounds into wisdom, our weakness into strength, and our sorrow into joy, through Christ our Lord. Amen. So this is recorded. When you get to your group, you have the pleasure of listening to my awesome voice again, and then you go into your reflection. I look forward to hearing the fruits of your reflection for this week. God bless you.